It's my Christmas wish list for the Badgers. And number one on my list for college football in general is for fans to stop complaining. I'm going to tell you what about.
You are Locked On Badgers, your daily podcast on the Wisconsin Badgers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is good, Badger fans? Merry Christmas. Happy holidays if you celebrate it. Today's episode brought to you by our good friends over at Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. All right. It is Christmas. Sorry this episode's a little late, but we had family stuff all day today, and I know a lot of other people did too. And I just hope everyone is having the most awesome holiday ever if you're able to do that, if you celebrate it. But I wanted to, family's gone. I wanted to get this show up here, and I wanted to just do Christmas wish list. What is the Christmas wish list for the Badgers? Badgers basketball, Badgers football, whatever it may be. I'm Ross Ryan Harris, part of Locked On Podcast Network. Every single day we are here. I want to start with this one, man. I think college football fans need to stop complaining. Stop. And it's not NIL related. I know everyone's thinking that's where I'm going. It's the college football playoffs. I've heard so many people ranting about blah, 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 blah. They got it wrong. And this was terrible matchups. I just saw incredible venues, incredible atmospheres. I saw home games at Notre Dame, and I was so excited to watch those games. And you had an expanded playoff. Think about where we are now versus where we were 10 years ago. We have home playoff games. And yeah, there's going to be blowouts. There's blowouts. There were blowouts in the BCS era. There were blowouts in the 4-team era. There's blowouts in the NFL playoffs. There's blowouts in Major League Baseball. There's blowouts in the NBA finals. You get blowouts. That's okay. For a week, we got to think Indiana might make a playoff run. We legitimately got to see a Penn State home playoff game, a Notre Dame home playoff game, Ohio State. We're going to see, we saw an SEC team in Tennessee come north and have to play in the cold. And it looked like they showed up without a spirit. It was awesome. And I know the game should have been better, and we're going to get better matchups. It's going to fluctuate year to year. What I hope is there's not too much of an overcorrection where the college football playoff the committee looks at this and says, man, we can't put any of these small teams in. Man, I was so stoked to see Indiana see if they could compete. And are they better than Bama? No. But listen, Bama lost 3 games they shouldn't have lost. Ole Miss, Bama, don't lose to crap teams. I'm sorry. You lost at Vanderbilt. Stop complaining. Stop. Just stop complaining. We are in just and I know NIL kind of taints where we're at in terms of the overall product of college football and what fans see. But we're in an incredible era of college football now where the entire year it means something because you can still earn a playoff spot. You can sneak in the 11-12 spot. You can go see home venues in playoff games. You have multiple chances to get in. You have multiple playoff games. That entire weekend felt amazing to me, and that was with the games being trash. Fans just got to stop complaining, in my opinion. And quite frankly, with the portal too. Now, I get that. Don't get me wrong. I don't like that either. I don't like where we're at, but here's the one thing that will always kind of annoy me. I'm going to go on Locked On Illinois show, and I'm going to talk about James Thompson Jr., Curtis Neal, Leon Lowry, and they're excited to get some guys in the front seven. They're excited to get some depth guys, whereas Badger fans are like, good. Those guys, they can go. We're not that big a deal. And meanwhile, we'll bring in other defense linemen. We're like, great, we solved the issue. I think we just got to get over this. Someone said it really well on Twitter. A lot of the transfer portal is exchanging kind of your spare parts for other spare parts. Let's stop acting like every portal guy that coming in is a big deal and every portal guy leaving wasn't good enough. For the most part, it is what it is. And let's stop vilifying guys who leave and saying, oh, they don't want to compete. They just want to beg. When we're doing the same thing, we're bringing in guys. And when we bring somebody in, Badger fans aren't saying, oh, he doesn't want to compete. They're like, no, let's get him. No, if Mabry Metor wants to move on, good for him. That's kind of where I'm at, man. And I think in general, with the portal's not great. I get it. There needs to be restrictions and legislations. I'm going to talk about that too. This is the wish list. I'm sitting on Santa's lap today, and I'm telling him everything I want. There needs to be some changes here. But in the meantime, all we're doing is complaining. The playoffs, NIL, the portal. Meanwhile, you have the ability to rebuild a team through the portal. You have the ability to, if you're not a blue blood, get to the playoffs. There's a chance you can host a playoff game. It makes the entire season more meaningful, in my opinion. If you're a bad team, you can go to the portal and potentially turn your sorry if you hear my kids bouncing around upstairs. My office is almost done. I just think fans are complaining too much. I think the game's even with NIL, is not in the terrible spot that people think it is. I just don't. And NIL is going to get fixed. There's going to be contracts. There's going to be legislation. I don't hate where we're at. Sue me. I think fans are complaining so much lately about everything. Okay. Number 2 on my wish list, my Santa wish list, health at quarterback. Can we please just get some health at quarterback? I listen, the last 2 years wouldn't have gone dramatically different if Tanner Mordecai had been healthy, if Tyler Van Dyke had been healthy. They would have been better. How many teams, non-blue blood, could you say the last 2 years have lost their starting quarterback and have done really well? It's just, you're not going to do that if you're a Wisconsin, if you're a non-Ohio State team. You're not going to go out, lose your starting quarterback 2 years in a row and exceed expectations, right? Does that mean we should have got beaten 42-10 against Iowa? No, absolutely not. But can we just get some health for our quarterback, please? And if you go back even further, how many years have the Badgers made it through the entire year with their starting quarterback being healthy? It didn't happen with Mertz. It didn't happen with Cohn. It didn't happen with Stave. Goodness gracious, man. Can we just get some health at quarterback? Can we just get a year of Billy Edwards Jr. Not getting dinged up and having to freak out and put in O'Neal or whoever else? Well, it'll be O'Neal. Yeah, I'm going to ask Santa for some health at quarterback because this team deserves it. Absolutely deserves it. Number 3 on my wish list. Number 2 on my wishes. 2 more portal quarterbacks. Got to get 2 more portal quarterbacks. Got to get some more bodies in that room, man. You brought in 1. That's good. That's a good start. He's a solid player, physical, good hands. You got to get 2 more. And that's not going to make here's the thing. Getting 2 more isn't going to make the secondary a strength. Those are key ingredients to a recipe we don't have. We're not cooking Michael Jordan steakhouse steak. We're trying to make meatloaf, grandma's meatloaf, and we're missing ingredients. We can't even fill out the defense right now unless we get a little more experience at cornerback, let alone cook a 5-star meal back there. We just got to get competent, and we need some more ingredients to do that. Otherwise, we can't even make the stew. So we got to get 2 more portal quarterbacks. All right, let's take some comments here, y'all. It is Christmas. Adamato says, let's go. Hoogs says, Merry Christmas. Bo Dragon says, Merry Christmas. That hat, though, looks like you could peck a hole in a tree. Yeah, listen, my wife got me this today, actually. It's a vintage Wisconsin Badgers hat. I don't even know really how to wear it, right? Because I grew up, I was more of a curved bill guy, 100%. So, I don't really know if this even looks good or not. I love the feel of it. It's from the 80s. It's vintage. I don't know. I'm going to play around with it today because I got it today for Christmas. The old lady did a great job. But I don't know if this is actually a great look for me or if I'm just not able to wear this. Somebody let me know. I have thick skin on stuff like that. Al says, Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas, Al. Appreciate you for being here. Will Hannah, Merry Christmas if you celebrated. And even if you don't, thank you, Will. Will's one of my favorite people that jumps in the chat as always. Let's keep going here. Yeah, Alan Sanders, not every NFL or NBA playoff is a classic either. I like the college playoffs. I think people made way too much out of a couple bad matchups, which, by the way, if those happen in the regular season, if Indiana had to go to Notre Dame or if Tennessee went to Iowa State, would anybody be shocked at those results? I don't think so. So why are we freaking out? Those teams were hosting playoff games for a reason. They should have won. It's not that big a deal. I love the playoff. I love it. And we're going to get better games. And some years, the first round is going to be much tighter, and it's probably going to go to 14, whatever. Stop freaking out. From where we are then to where we are now, we've come so far just in that aspect of it. Tim Mathewson says, my wish list is that we can be patient as a society and not rush good things. Enjoy the process and development. I miss those days. Look at Winter. He'll be amazing next year. I love that, Tim. Honestly, I'm going to star that. I might bring that up later in the show as well. Heck yeah. I'm all for that. Now, you got to start showing that progress, right? When you say be patient as a society and not rush good things, 5-7 and 7-5, there is only so much patience you get when you're inheriting a Wisconsin as a football team. You're not taking over a rebuild. So I understand the frustration there, but I also get this. I do think we've gotten a little too quick hit. We've gotten a little too fast on takes. And let's sometimes take a breath, enjoy it, relax, put on the trucker hat from the 80s and just see if people hate it or not and just kind of go with the flow. All right, we're going to take a quick second here, friends of the show. A bunch more of your comments, plus more on my Santa wish list coming up next on Locked On Badgers. And as always, really do appreciate you guys. It is the Christmas special. Thank you so much for joining us. Today's episode brought to you by Gametime. I was looking on Gametime yesterday because I am trying to find us a block of tickets for the Oregon game. If you're in the Discord and you haven't responded, let me know if you want to try to make this meetup. I'm going to try to get a block of tickets. We're going to get together. I'm going to get those tickets on Gametime because where else would I get it? Right? Like, it's the fastest, easiest, simplest place to get tickets. It saves me money. It's less logistical pain. It's less stress. Bro, my life is stressful enough at times. I'm going to use Gametime to de-stress it, to get tickets to the things we want to go to, the experiences we want to have, and find them for cheaper and easier with flash deals, great inventory, pictures of the seats before you sit down. Snag the tickets without the stress over at Gametime. Right now, download the Gametime app, create the account, use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. That's code LOCKEDONCollege, $20 off your first purchase. Terms to apply. Again, create the account, code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Okay, let's jump back into this. I want to get you some more of your comments because, listen, it's Christmas. It's a holiday. Y'all let me know if I'm crazy. I'll put the link back up to the Discord here if people want to jump in and try to get into that live Oregon show that we're going to be doing. Let's get some more comments. Ryan says, let's stop acting like football is going to be good this time. I'm not a Grinchy person, but I'm a realist. Optimism is great, but there's just not much to like about what's going on. That's completely fair. I will say, I always find it weird that people who say they're a realist, it means that they couldn't be an optimist, right? Realist is, to me, has a connotation of just being a pessimist. I don't know, but I'm not. Listen to Bruce and the Pudding. They went 5-7 last year. You're completely legitimately correct for saying, I don't like where I'm going. I don't like where this has been going either. I do think this team is going to be better. I do think it's going to be better this year. I think Billy Edwards Jr., Grimes, I talked about it. I think the offense is going to be better. But I have my concerns too. I have major concerns on the defensive side of the ball. This secondary could get torched if they don't figure some stuff out. And I don't love how Tressel and Mitchell and some of those guys used their linebackers last year. So I hear you. I am taking a little more reserved approach this year, although I do think legitimately, I think this team is going to be better next year. And this team wasn't that far from winning record last year. They won one more game and they're going to a bowl, right? And you went 5-7 with maybe the worst quarterback play in the Big Ten. If you just upgrade that, you're going to a bowl game next year. You are. If you just get competent quarterback play going from Braden Locke to competent, you're going to go to a bowl game next year. And that might not be a good one, but you're going to go. So is that progress? I'm not sure. We'll see. Andrew Speed says, I'm not a fan of the portal. Wish it would be limited and strict, but we have the 6th best portal class so far, and we have gotten some dogs in the portal. So I don't understand why we're so angry. They've been good in the portal. Got to finish it. You need another cornerback or two. I still think you could use, honestly, I think you could use another interior offensive lineman potentially, and then a safety still, but those are more on a kicker. You got to get somebody who can be with Vakos, unless they did that with the guy who came over. But yeah, 2 more corners, and I think you're good. And then you're bargain shopping, right? Then you have everything checked off on your Christmas list, and you just go to Outlet City, and you try to see if there's anything there that catches your eye that would make sense for the home, right? Like maybe you have a spot on your wall you've been looking, that's needed a motivational poster forever, and you stumble upon one at Bargain City, and that makes sense. Like that, you can do that in the portal as well, and just targets of opportunity that can make your roster better. Can add depth or competition, but honestly, a couple more corners and you're pretty good. Bo says the offense will be okay next year just by replacing Stinko with Grimy. I mean, I think he means Longo with Grimes. I do think the offense will be better next year. Al Fashini Falashi, I'm sorry if I pronounced that, my friend, says, I'd love to see a minimum 3-year commitment with incoming freshmen unless there's a good head coach or unless there's a head coach or OCDC change. We have to stop the need to re-recruit the entire roster every year. I agree. I don't know if 3 years will be it. It's got to be a couple years at least. 2 years at least. Have something where not every year you're re-recruiting the roster. I think we're getting there. I think we're going there. I really, really do. Okay. Well, let's go here. Next question. Our next part of my Christmas wish list. Next part of my Christmas wish list for the 2025 year is Angry Crowell. Got to keep getting Angry Crowell. Maybe Santa cannot give him any presents for Christmas. Give him some coal. Tick him off a little bit. Maybe he gets a visit from Krampus. I don't know what it is. I hope that didn't actually happen. But the last couple weeks, the last couple games, we've gotten Angry Crowell. The Badgers have won both of them. Again, like it was Butler and Detroit Mercy. So it wasn't Illinois and Michigan. But that's the version of Steven Crowell you need. And with the ascendance of Nolan Winter, if you get that version of Steven Crowell, which is just solid Steven Crowell, where you're getting 10 points, 6 boards, 12.6 boards on efficiency, bro, this front court's fine. I'm telling you right now, the front court's fine if you get that version of Steven Crowell. You're still going to get beaten up by the really athletic front courts. We knew that, but you can hold your own against those guys to some degree, and you can beat up on the other guys. 2025, I need angry Crowell. I need Santa to deliver that for me. I also need some of the young studs. So we've hung a lot of our optimism on this recruiting department, this acquisition and development of young talent through Max Steinecker, Pat Lambert, and then through Brady Collins developing them. Well, we need to start seeing that pipeline produce results, right? That factory has to start pumping out guys. Now, otherwise, that hype or that hope will just become hype, right? It won't become something tangible. So what does that look like next year? Because it's still early for those players, but can Grant Steck start to move into the number 2 tight end role? Can Kyan Barry Johnson start to fill some of the slack of a Will Pauling? Can Jameer Scott or Jamari Washington or Emilio Agard step into one of those big-time cornerback roles and fill depth there? Can you get a guy like Ernest Willard Jr. as maybe that jack edge rusher? Here's 3 big ones: Thomas Heiberger, Dylan Jones, Darion Dupree. They got to be kind of studs. They got to start showing what got us so excited, because otherwise a lot of the hope that you put, and it's still young for them. It's not putting everything on them, but you have to start seeing glimpses of that young talent on the roster. If that's where you're going to put a lot of your optimism, if that's where you're going to put a lot of your stake in the positivity, you got to start seeing that stuff flash, right? Next up on my Santa wish list, Max Klesmit's got to start finding his stroke. Team has been fine. Like, it's been a good squad so far. Klesmit has been shooting really poorly. Right. And if we maybe have kind of solved the Crowell thing, I'm not saying we have, but I do think it's interesting that after Gard kind of publicly aired Steven Crowell out, you've gotten 2 really good Steven Crowell games. If Klesmit can just get back to 32, 33, 34% shooting, I do think water finds its level, which is a saying I always heard from a coach that I worked for. And, we'd be playing a team and their shooter would be 0-6. And I'd be like, all right, maybe we can. And he would always say, no. She's going to start hitting shots, so you got to stay after her. Water will find its level. Klesmit is a better shooter than this. He's shown it over years, over volume. He's a better shooter than this. He's got to find it, because otherwise it puts too much pressure on the rest of the team. He needs to be a competent floor spacer. He needs to be a guy that's hitting shots that are open. And quite frankly, I think he needs to do a better job of deciding when to shoot and when to pass. I think he takes some shots that are questionable. Some shots where I would rather him kick that pass to Tanjay, to Blackwell, to Winter. I would rather him move the ball one more time. I think he forces some shots, which is fine if you're shooting 35%, 34% from 3. It's not fine if you're shooting 20-something percent from 3, 32% from the field. So Klesmit finding his spots and then hitting those shots, I think, is a big part of 2025 for this football team. Number 6 on the Santa wish list is I'm sitting on Santa's lap and I'm asking him things. Portal hit rate has to go up. We talked about it. The last 2 years, they have not hit in the portal at the clip they need to. Some of that is the portal's hard, but other teams seem to have hit at a higher clip than Wisconsin has. You look back to last year's transfer portal haul, and you're looking at a Leon Lowry, John Pius, guys that didn't really work out. Brendan Lane didn't get on the field. You're looking at a couple of receivers that Tyrell Henry and Griffin that didn't really play. They got to hit at a higher clip. They just have to. And some of that's been injury related. Tyler Van Dyke might have been a guy, and then he got hurt, so that's not really on this. But there's been too many misses. Too many guys that they brought in the last 2 cycles. You remember the cycle before, you had guys like Darian Varner. You had some receivers that didn't live up to the billing. You had a couple other linebackers that didn't fill up to the billing, really. Jeff Petroyski, and even though he played, he wasn't really impactful. You got to hope you get more from this transfer portal class. You have to get more. You have to get more. And we'll see if they do. Like, the jury's out. I like a lot of pieces they brought in, but one thing we've learned from the portal, and we learned this specifically from linebackers last year, is you can't just throw a bunch of bodies out there, do this with your hands and say, good, we're good, we got bodies. You also got to know how to use them. You got to find the right rotations. You got to use the right schemes with them. I think they threw linebackers, they threw numbers at the problem last year, and then took too long to adjust, took too long to say, geez, maybe Sebastian Cheeks is the best edge transfer portal guy we got. We should play him more. Maybe some of these other guys aren't quite as good as we thought, and we should just switch to Allegro. They got to figure out that defense line rotation quick this year, because they brought in 5 bodies, and they got 4 or 5 returning, and they got a couple in this recruiting class. They got to figure that out quick. They got to figure it out quick this year. So that's next up on my Christmas wish list from Santa. All right, one more quick break for our friends of the show. Come back. We had a bunch more of your comments. And we got a couple more things on my Santa's wish list. I'm going to get to that next on Locked On Badgers. As always, a quick second for our friends of the show, our great friends over the show, over at FanDuel. Listen, FanDuel's the place. You want to make some money this upcoming year and do it with parlays, futures, teaser, spreads. Again, always do it responsibly, but it's simple. It's easy. The user interface is so slick. Like, I can just go in there, figure out what I need. I don't have to hunt for stuff. If you've never done it before, the user interface is great, and it has great customer support. If you have any question, they're quick to get back to you, because I got questions and they're quick to get back to me. If you win, you get your money quickly when you want it. It's not like this. When I first started sports gambling, just as like a fun thing to do, I think my money was getting routed like through Bulgaria to Romania. I think it went through like a Hungarian tank factory, and then I would get some back eventually. FanDuel's clean. It's easy. It's simple. It's trustworthy. And right now, new customers, you bet $5, you get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed over at FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Okay, let's get back into our conversation here. My wish list for Santa, and I feel like I've been a good kid. I feel like I've been a good guy, so hopefully I get most of this. Next up on my wish list is legislation. I talked about it. I've talked about why I think the sport is in a better spot than people think, just in terms of the playoffs, competitive balance, interest. Interest is a big deal. Look at the ratings for this sport. Like, this sport is, compare that to the ratings for the NBA. Like, college football's fine. The money's flowing. They just got to figure this out. And that legislation that is on my wish list will help do that. There's got to be some rules and regulations set forward. We've all talked about it. Some type of contract, some type of something in place where you don't land a guy, he doesn't play, and then a year later he leaves. It's not tenable. And it's not tenable for this reason, for a lot of reasons. But one of the reasons it doesn't get talked about is it puts coaches in a horrible spot. Because now maybe you landed a 4-star player, but you have an upperclassman at that spot that's just a little bit better. But you got to play the 4-star kid or he's going to leave. Like, what do you do as a coach? Like, people get so frustrated with coaches for not hanging on to talent. How the hell are you supposed to hang on to a guy when you either have to play him, even though he's a worse player, or you're going to lose him, or you play the upperclassman who's a better player, but that's going to cost you the younger guy? Those are impossible decisions. Impossible decisions. So legislation's coming, and they're going to figure out something. It may not be perfect, but I think it'll be better than what we are now. So that's coming. That's on my wish list. Next one up is Tressel. Tressel's got to look at some stats. Go to cfbstats.com. Look at our tackles for loss, our sacks, our defensive numbers, and he's got to look in the mirror and say, that didn't work. That didn't work. What I did last year didn't work. And by the way, I don't think Tressel's an idiot. I've never thought he's an idiot. I think he's a smart coach. I think Fickell trusts him because Fickell believes he's a smart coach. But you got to do something different this year, and you got to be a little more adjustable and a little more flexible with the young players. And the last thing I have got on my wish list is beat Minnesota. Get the axe back. Listen, I don't need to expand any further on that. Beat Minnesota. I got 10 things on my Christmas wish list. Beat Minnesota. Get the axe. Sink the boat. Restore normalcy. Yes, that is my Christmas wish list for Santa this year. Let's look at some more comments here. Let's see here. Okay. Bo Dragon says, is this the most viewed Locked On show? No, not even close. Those dudes, there's dudes out there crushing me. But they're smarter than me and better looking than me. So genetically, I can't do anything about my intelligence, and genetically, I can't do anything about my face. And it is what it is. There's very, very good shows out there that are doing incredible work. Okay. Rick Fanta says 4 cornerbacks and 2 safeties, like total. So they've already got 2 safeties. And they've got 1 corner. So if you're counting those guys, I think you could get by with 3 corners and 2 safeties if you're counting the guys already in the roster. So that'd be 2 more cornerbacks, because I do think if Rico doesn't go anywhere, which he hasn't decided yet, that's in the mist, right? If he stays, I think you can get by with just 2 more corners, because I do think you're going to get some play out of Harper or a Gard. I do think one of your freshmen can play. So yeah, I think 2 more corners, and I think you're good at safety, although I'd love a rangy guy. Here's what I don't think we necessarily have in the safety room right now. I think we have a bunch of guys that are better in the box. I think we have a bunch of guys that are better near the line of scrimmage, that are better against tight ends, that are physical. I don't know if we've really got a center fielder. I miss having like a Natrell Jamerson. I miss having a Tanner McAvoy. Now, both of those are NFL guys, but there's a void in this defense. I think in that deep middle zone that can kind of cover a lot of ground on deep passes. And I do think they would be helped if they could find somebody like that. Yeah, Hooger says, as much as I'm not a Corral guy, when he plays Irked, we win. Yeah, that's it, right? Like and by the way, this is Corral's like happy face, and this is like Corral's angry face. It's like the same thing, but you can tell when he's a little pissed off, right? When he's got a little bit of an edge, and when he does that, he's a really good player. I've been the biggest Steven Corral fan. Like when he is a little pissed off, this team is so much better. He's a great passing big. He's got good touch around the rim as long as he's not getting too physicaled up. Like he's a really solid Big Ten center. He just needs to bring it. Let's Talk Football asks, what's going on with Xavier Lucas? What little I've heard is I still expect him to end up at Miami, is what little I've heard. I know there's some questions about why hasn't Wisconsin put the paperwork in? Is there potential tampering charges, like tampering stuff? Is there a possibility that he comes back? I still think he ends up in Miami. I just think there's some finagling going on behind the scenes that I'm not privy to. I don't know what that is, but I don't think that he will be coming back to Wisconsin as much as I would love to. Here's the other thing. It's that old cheesy saying, but if you love somebody and you let them go and they love you back, they'll come back. I'm probably butchering that. But the point is, if a player wants to leave, it's probably best not to try to force him to stay anyway in this era. You're going to cause locker room issues. And I think Xavier's a great guy. Like I've talked to him. I talked to his dad. I'm not saying he would be a cancer. I'm just saying in general, if a player really wants out and they want to go to a school that's closer to home, they were here for a year, maybe it wasn't great, and there's freedom of movement now. I don't think it's ever going to be beneficial to try to force something to stay. Alan Saunders says, Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, be well. Absolutely. B-Vault, good dude, man. Merry Christmas, guys. Hardest working man in Wisconsin podcast. I got to be the hardest working because I'm definitely not, like I said, not the most talented or smartest. So at least I try hard. I'm like LeBron coming off that game where he got blasted and the fans like, good job, good effort. Like at least I try hard. I always do that. A couple more questions here. Jerry Johnson mentions, tell me why home state kicker decommits if it's not about money. I assume we're referring to the Notre Dame flip. He got offered a full ride at Notre Dame, and it wasn't a full ride at Wisconsin. They were going to do some type of like 3 for 2 year or 3 for 5 years, like gray shirt offer. I think that's partially why I went to Notre Dame. And listen, Notre Dame's also winning. Notre Dame just went to the playoffs. We got to win. We saw. Did anyone else catch Fernando Mendoza, the major portal quarterback, like one of the top portal quarterbacks in the country, committing to Indiana? And what was one of the things he said? He said that coach got him into the playoffs. Like they're winning. Wisconsin's got to start winning. It's going to make everything easier. It's going to make it easier in the NIL department. It's going to make it easier to raise money. It's going to make it easier to recruit. It's going to make it easier to retain. It's not the be all end all. Like there's teams that are winning that are losing talent too, but eventually, man, Wisconsin just needs to win. A couple more questions here. We'll wrap this up. Hooger says, I don't think people realize if Chris was here, we'd be 1-11. I don't know if we'd be a 1-11, but I don't think Chris was well adapted for this game either. Now, Fickell's got to prove he can do it at Wisconsin, but I think Chris, this was going downhill. And I've said that a bunch of times. I don't want to relitigate it. I really appreciate what Paul Chris did here, but I don't think it was going well. Bo Dragon, Ryan, what job did you do in the Navy? I was a fire control technician aboard ballistic missile submarines. So basically, I was the guy. Sonar would feed us data, right? Sonar is the ears on a submarine. And by the way, this is the last minute of the show, so I'm going off topic. But imagine in a field, you're trying to find somebody, but you have to keep your eyes closed. So all you can do is hear. And you hear like a twig break. And at off your port side or if your starboard side, you hear a twig break, and then 30 seconds later you hear another twig break, and that one's 30 degrees further to the south. So what sonar is going to do is say, all right, we heard a sound down here and a sound down here, and then what we would do as fire control technicians is take those noises, those bearings, and say, okay, if the sound traveled from that spot to this spot in this much time, what course and speed makes sense? So then we'd start varying in course, speed, and range to what makes sense. And then we would feed that into the torpedo system. And, we have Mark 48 ad caps, which are advanced capability torpedoes, incredible weapons. Like our undersea fleet, I know a lot of people don't know, like it is absolutely incredible how talented the people at the tip of the spear are for the United States Navy and the submarine fleet. I'm telling y'all, like, we have a lot of things to worry about in this world, in this country. The submarine fleet is not one of them. It is incredible how talented and smart they are and how incredible those machines are down to the smallest detail. So Anyway, I could do a whole podcast on submarines in my time there. I absolutely love it. And I'm very appreciative of all those people. There's people out there right now. It's Christmas, and there's always ballistic missile submarines patrolling off each coast. There's always submarines on alert off each coast. There's always fast attacks. So think about that right now. While we're here talking Badgers, there's hundreds of U.S. Navy sailors 300-400 feet underwater. I can't tell you how deep they actually get, but just patrolling. We used to call it punching holes in the ocean. So absolutely hats off to those guys. And everyone else that serves, right? Everyone else that's out there doing incredible stuff. Sorry, I kind of pivoted there, but on Wisconsin, as always, really do appreciate every single person in here. You guys are incredible. This community is amazing. Keep in mind, again, if you want in on the Oregon, two quick housekeeping notes. If you want in on the Oregon game, again, we're going to try to get a group of people together. Go watch the Oregon basketball game. Here's the thing. Like, I don't ever want money to be a reason why somebody can't go somewhere. Like, if you want to come and you can't pick up tickets, just DM me. Get on the Discord, DM me. It will all be private. We'll make it work. I never want money to be a reason someone can't come and be a fan and cheer and hang out. That's never going to be a thing. So if you can pay for it, obviously that's great too, but we're going to make it work. We're going to have a great event. And the other thing is this Friday, we're doing our giveaway show. We have some bangers this year. Every year we do a giveaway show, and I did it my first year, and I've done it every year. And it's literally just a way for me to say thank you to you guys for joining in, for being here, for being part of this community, for supporting it, for being nice and kind and all that you do. So it's all free. We got 15 or 16 presents this year. Full-size Melvin Gordon signed helmet, frame, Joe Thomas autograph, the picture, Ron Dane autograph mini helmet. So that'll be this Friday. I hope you guys can make it. We'll give away a bunch of stuff there too. And with that, on Wisconsin. Appreciate you guys so much. We'll talk again tomorrow. And Merry Christmas. Happy holidays. Happy Hanukkah. Happy day if you don't celebrate any of those.